One of the legendary characters from Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2 is Minsc, who, it is more than rumored, and has been teased, will appear yet again in Baldur's Gate 3 as a companion. Minsc is famous for his having taken one too many knocks to the head, his dedication to good, and above all, his trusted animal companion Boo, a purported giant space hamster, who is constantly at his side. But this still begs the question, who is Minsc, and what kind of man is he, and how did he end up in Baldur's Gate 3? Minsc is a tall, bald, muscular man, a ranger by profession, who started his career as a bodyguard on his Djemma, or coming-of-age journey, to Arashman Wishlaran, and mage, or wise old woman, Dynaheir. In fact, you meet him in Baldur's Gate 1 as he seeks to rescue his mistress Dynaheir from a pack of gnolls. Minsc's goal at this time is the admittance to the Ice Dragon Berserker Lodge, one of the most prestigious of the Berserker Lodges in Rashomon. Berserker Lodges are groups of warriors organized into units based upon the names of animals or monsters. They're often differentiated by their abilities and the tasks they are assigned and set themselves to. The names of all known Rashomon Berserker Lodges are the Ettercap, Ice Troll, Great Stag, Wolf, Snow Tiger, Owlbear, Goblin, White Dragon, and Black Bear Lodges, and uniquely, the Old Lodge, which is an order of berserkers composed of the most knowledgeable and accomplished warriors drawn from the other lodges, and who require that their berserkers have mastered at least 3 different fighting styles before joining. White Dragon Berserkers, of the sort Minsc sought to join, are characterized by the requirement to hunt and slay a white dragon. Rather uniquely, the state of rage that Rashomon Berserkers can enter into makes them immune to all forms of compulsion, being blinded, and even outright being killed before the rage is ended, after which they return to baseline. During this rage they can become unreachable, and some even lose their ability to distinguish friend and foe. Such berserkers are sent to the front line, usually to perish, because they can no longer be trusted, and better for them to serve a good cause. After the events of the first Baldur's Gate game, in which Minsc and Dynaheir aided the Bhaalspawn in defeating Saravok, they briefly settled in the city of Baldur's Gate. But he and his mistress soon joined the hero of Baldur's Gate again, whereupon they ended up imprisoned underneath Atkathla by the mage Irenicus, the primary antagonist of Baldur's Gate 2, during which Dynaheir sadly dies. This deeply affected Minsc, as he was sworn to protect her, seeing himself as having failed in his task, though Minsc thereafter again partnered with the Bhaalspawn and avenged her death, ushering in the end of the Bhaalspawn saga. What Minsc ended up doing immediately after the events of the Bhaalspawn saga is not known, but decades after the events of the Bhaalspawn crisis, in 1479 DR, a merchant ordered the construction of a statue honoring the memory of Minsc in Baldur's Gate. Though, unbeknownst to virtually all, the statue was not a work of art created by a sculptor. Rather, it was Minsc under the permanent effect of a petrification spell, though it never became clear how he wound up in this situation. This statue became known as the Beloved Ranger, and many of Baldur's Gate's citizens would frequently pose with it and spend time underneath its shadow. Some years later, when a wild magic sorceress named Delina was battling gargoyles in Baldur's Gate, a wild magic surge occurred as the result of one of her spells that dispelled the petrification spell on Minsc. Coming back to life, Minsc was disoriented, but quickly joined up with Delina and later fled the city with her and the thieves Krydal and Shandel, and in time they would become steadfast adventuring companions. At a later date, the now companions had become known as the heroes of Baldur's Gate, having worked as sellswords in the city. Then one day, in an effort to help defend a temple of Kellumbor against a werewolf attack, during which they gave chase to the beasts, they were drawn into the domains of Dread, a pocket dimension, to a land called Barovia, ruled by the infamous vampire Strahd von Zarovich, where they confronted other monsters, werewolves, and vampires among them, returning back to Faerun, very much by the skin of their teeth, narrowly escaping the Misty Realm after having been severely injured by werewolf and vampire minions of Strahd. Minsc and his companions reappeared in the far north of Faerun, and found themselves embroiled in a further adventure, involving a conspiracy of frost giants and white dragons, which would lead to long-standing consequences for giant hierarchy and giant society throughout Faerun. Traveling across Faerun, Minsc later found himself caught up in adventures on the Sword Coast, as he and his companions for the time being went their separate ways, and during which Minsc found himself in the company of none other than Volothamp Gedarn, the encyclopedist and bard that we can meet in Baldur's Gate 3 Early Access, as well as the priestess of Selûne, Celeste, as they sought to end the malevolent death curse, which prevented the raising and resurrection of slain beings, and had the further effect that those who had been previously raised or resurrected would crumble to dust, something caused by an artifact of immense power called the Soulmonger, all of which had been put into motion by the Archmage, an immensely powerful lich called Asururok. And having successfully put an end to the death curse, Minsc became involved in what would come to be his most deadly adventure, one that forever changed him. Whilst adventuring, Minsc happened upon a Hell Rider, fighting off fiends from the lower planes, and though unable to initially save him, he promised to rescue him, seeking out the Archmage and Savant, Silvira Savikas, who agreed to teleport him to Elturel, which had just been dragged into the Nine Hells. Although Minsc eventually escaped the Hells, he did not escape unscathed, as he had been submerged in the waters of the River Styx, leading to a complete loss of his identity and all of his memories. Although his memories were stripped from him, confrontation with the Archdevil Zariel, when still in Avernus, reignited his urge to fight evil. However, it was not sufficient to restore his actual memories, only enough to reignite his instinct to combat the malevolent. And since that time, his companions tell him stories of his deeds and achievements, assuring him of their veracity. Minsc has always been a simple man, a ranger whose sole principle is to fight and defeat evil. He is sensitive, helpful, and unyielding, but rather lacking in brains and forethought, often rushing into situations without considering the consequences of his actions. Although his memories have been stripped from him, his core identity of inveterate foe of all evil has remained. The fact that he has lost his memories and will be companion in the game makes me wonder as to how he will fit into the companion roster. He might have noticeably less to contribute to the party dialogue in such a state. But let me spin an idea for you, just a hypothesis. As Minsc has lost his memories to the River Styx, it could be that he as a companion also has been picked up by the Illithids and planted with the tadpole that then reactivates his memories and allows him to become fully operational again, so to speak. Obviously, this is pure speculation. But as the tadpole allows Astarion to withstand the light of the sun, and actually prevents the process of ceremorphosis, so too could the tadpole restore the memories, even memories lost to the River Styx. Far-fetched, it is not, given what we know about the tadpoles and their powerful Netherese magical origin. Given Minsc's moral tendencies and obsession with the good, I find it difficult to believe that he would get along with anyone other than Gale, and to a lesser extent perhaps Will. Lae'zel would make for conflict, as would Astarion rather obviously, and possibly even Shadowheart, as I simply cannot imagine him agreeing to side with the goblins, for example. Furthermore, his less than robust intelligence would make for a very odd romance companion. In the previous Baldur's Gate games, he had many companions to jive with, but has decidedly fewer in Baldur's Gate 3, at least potentially. It should be interesting to see what the reveal brings, as well as Patch 9, concerning the famous Rashomon Berserker. As always, thank you for tuning in. Please leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, as it really helps out the channel, and I'll check you out next time. Take care.